Are you having trouble closing on leads? But then again, are they leads in the first place? Are you having trouble identifying leads to close on? Let's fix.
This is your first day in real estate, and I am your real estate sales trainer and coach, James Festini. And this is the program that's going to teach you how to sell more real estate in less time.
And since 1993, I've helped a lot of people buy and sell real estate. I'm also a coach. If you need one-on-one, find me. Otherwise, listen to this message. For a very, very long time, since, well, forever, real estate agents and salespeople altogether have classified their lead flow, meaning a potential customer who might be interested in the product or whatever, in this case, real estate, the listing lead. We've always had this thing where we register or categorize them based on motivating factors: high, medium, and low, or hot, warm, cold. And that would mean that if they're high or hot, that they're going to transact sooner rather than later. If they're medium, that they're going to transact later rather than sooner. And if they're cold, it means it's never going to happen, right? That they just go back into the general population or the phone book. So for a long time in my CRM, I've always done the same thing where I put hot, warm, cold. Now, recently, I've always had this thing, but I've shifted a mindset here. Hear me out, because I'm trying to describe something that's kind of specific to Mojo, but specific to all lead generation platforms. As I'm making my cold calls, now this is for cold calls, meaning that we're going out and we're doing lead generation from nothing. We're calling pretty much the phone book and making outbound calls, asking individuals, pitching whatever script you have, and then having them give some sort of indicator that they might be interested versus not interested. Now, for many years, I would have said if they were not interested, I would have marked them as cold and left them in a cold category. However, over the period of these many, many years, I've stumbled into this dilemma where my leads that were once hot, they become warm and then they become cold. But once upon a time, they said yes. Do you have this problem? If you have this problem, you know what I'm talking about. Meaning you'll talk to someone and they seem like, man, this is the next deal. And then you call them back and everything changes. And now you're stuck in this place where you want to just put them back into the phone book, or what I used to call Gen Pop. And if you watch me for a while, meaning general population, they go into a phone book, meaning cold, and then just leave it be to chance, right? That you'll call them, whatever, 60, 90 days in the future. But there was no specific scheduled callback. Now, for a long time also, I've been a fan of CRMs that have a callback. And I know back in the day, Top Producer used to have callback. And in my opinion, the most important button in a CRM is the follow-up call. And a lot of these CRMs out there, they don't make it very easy for you to look at your contact, have a conversation, and then say, when do I need to call them back? It's like this back buried to-do thing where CRM, customer relationship manager, customer is the CRM, the contact, relationship is in the follow-up, and manager is the management of that follow-up of the customer. And it doesn't make any sense why you wouldn't put a specific date and time on when you need to call them back. This being said, if it's a hot lead, right, you're going to call them once a week, twice a month, whatever. If it's a warm, you're going to call them at least every 3 weeks, maybe every month. And if it's a cold, you leave it to every 90 days. Now, hear that specific change in the identification of cold. I now have a different structure in what I call cold. I used to identify these three categories as high and medium, which is yes, maybe, and no. No would be cold. But what do we do with those leads that were once upon a time yes or maybe? Do we allow them to go back into cold? Considering the sizes of our database and the amount of work we put into the database, my database is 50, 80,000 big. I couldn't risk these individuals who once upon a time made it sound like they were my next deal and now they fell apart. I couldn't risk them going into Gen Pop anymore. I have a large pile. I'll share it with you here. This is a result of this conversation, by the way. This pile right here is a list of individuals that since the beginning of the new year have listed their home with somebody else. That's right. They listed, these are my losses. They are individuals who I was communicating with, and then at some point I made a conscious decision to say, you know what, they're probably not that hot. And so I put them in general population, where they weren't hot, they weren't warm, because they said they changed their mind. Something happened. And so here's what happens. They didn't change their mind. They just pushed me off. And we dismissed dismissive leads. I did a video a long time about it. So here's the structure. Here's the point of this conversation, this topic. I want you to go back into your database, and I want you to have four main categories. Now, there's also subgroups, and I'm going to go ahead and say inside of Mojo, I use groups. I don't use lists. If you use other CRMs, identify their motivation based on these four, no longer three, but four categories: hot, warm, cold, and prospecting or phone book. Okay. Now, hot, warm, cold, prospecting, or phone book, whatever you want to call it. I call mine phone book, meaning that it's just the phone book, and that's that. Hot is, of course, somebody who's super hot, ready to go. You're sending them mailers, you're sending them emails, you're doing everything you can to be on top of them. Assuming you have a decent sized database, hot is maybe 1% of your database. Very small, because if they're hot, it's because they're hot. So I got maybe 10 hots. In my warm database, again, the size of my database, in my warms, I have 200 maybe or so people who are saying not right now, but maybe later. Yeah, it's pretty big, but they continue to say not right now, maybe later. So they're not cold. See the difference between somebody who is cold and hot, or warm and hot. Hot is a yes, a very specific, that you can see a timeline. This is all isolated based on time, right? If our business didn't rely on getting paid sooner rather than later, then this whole topic wouldn't matter. But since we need to get paid, right? We want to put a schedule to our paycheck so we can count on it and measure our CRM. So hot to me means someone who's going to do something within 30 days. Warm is someone within 6 months. I mean, that's just how long it could take, because it could come back and forth. And cold is somebody that is unknown the specific date or time. So what I want to do is I want you to go ahead. I'm doing it, and I encourage you to do it. You have these four databases. If somebody says yes, I am, or maybe I am, and then all of a sudden they say, no, I'm no longer. If they change their mind, for example, a buyer who walks into an open house, they don't walk on the lot lest they want to buy. They're sitting out there waiting to give you Glenn Ross. Meaning that something happened for these people to give you that indication that they were going to do something, and now they didn't. I want you to take those people who you're like, I don't want to get rid of them, but I don't want to keep calling them. Here's what you want to do. Again, these motivations are based on time. How long into the future are they going to transact? Again, for me, hot is within the next 60 days max, right? Depending on the time of year, depending on what it is. But if they give me a specific time, then they are hot. It could be 6 months, but if they give me a date, that's hot enough for me to put them on a mailer. Again, hot also differentiates what am I spending, investing on the follow-up. I'm putting them into a mailer, sending 55-cent stamps each time for each one of them. Might not sound like much, but if you have 10, it adds up, right? Especially if you're mailing them every 2 weeks, it'll add up. Warm is going to be the consistency of emails. Are you sending them drip campaigns? Are you following up with them? How are you scheduling the calls? This is what it's all about, the phone call. Warm, hots, at least one a month, depending on how hot they are, maybe once a week. Definitely some sort of touch. I've identified the 5 levels of communication or follow-up: mail, email, text, phone, door. Any one of these 5 variables on the hottest have to be every week, so that obviously if you're not calling them every week, you can email them once a week, or you can do a text every 2 or 3 weeks, and you can call them every 2. You know what I mean? You can use them and pepper them all in there so that they know who you are. Warm, same thing, a very similar follow-up campaign, but spread out a little bit farther apart so that you don't light people up and get them upset because you're following up too much, because they're not ready yet, but they did say one day into the future. This third database, this is the database I'm talking about. It didn't exist before. It was called cold, but it was also grouped in with 50,000 other people. I have now changed this where it is now a repository for everybody who once upon a time said maybe, everybody who said yes and now they didn't, right? Expireds, for example, if you speak to an expired and they say, I'm not interested anymore, they go into that because once upon a time they were. It's that one right there where if you never talk to the expired, where is that? In my opinion, the expireds, the new expireds, they go into hear this out. I hope you guys understand this. New expireds will go into this prospecting database, but they get called immediately because they are not a lead. With Mojo, this is where it kind of all started, was when Mojo was allowing us to flag things as a lead. If you've seen Mojo, there's all these different groups, but then they created this little thing where you can flag it as a lead. Hot, warm, cold leads. Okay, so now we're separating leads, identifying leads. Now, if somebody is an expired, if you call them and say, hi, my name is Agent with Company, I was calling to see if you had any interest in selling your house, and they say, no, I'm no longer interested. To me, that's still a lead because once upon a time they did. But am I going to bombard them? Absolutely not, because they said they're no longer interested, but they're no longer in that Gen Pop status. In my opinion, they're a lead, so I'm going to put them into the cold database. What does that mean when I move them into the cold database? They are now a scheduled thing. This, I guess, is the roundabout punchline to this whole 10 minutes now. Scheduling a callback is critical. Every one of these individuals have to have a scheduled callback. In particular, Mojo, I can go into my calendar and I can see what my potential value is and my potential income simply by going into my calendar and saying, giving me everybody in my database who has a callback scheduled. That is the differentiator between nothing and something, and that is somebody who has a callback scheduled. I was motivated to do this quick little session because there's one more variable on this scheduling of a callback, meaning you put it in your calendar. So let's say you're doing your calls and you say, hi, my name is Agent with Company. I was assuming you're using my script. Oh, when they say, no, not right now, maybe later, and they hang up. When they say no, not right now, maybe later, and hang up, that gave you a specific time. So that crosses the barrier from prospecting, Gen Pop, phone book to lead. That's my barrier to entry. What is a lead is very low. I'm not investing a whole lot in this small database other than scheduling them for a callback. Here's the big trick. The cold gets a callback at a minimum every 4 months. You hear me? Every 4 months. Because they said they're no longer interested. Are you going to put them into a general population, a phone book, and risk that? And this is what I was doing. This is the problem with this paper stack that I have here, is that's what I was doing. I was saying to myself, you know what? If they say no, I'm just going to Gen Pop them. And if you watch me for a while, you heard me say this, Gen Pop, meaning I am so consistent with my cold calls that they will come back around one day. But in 90 days, since I have Mojo set up not to dial the same number every 90 days if I'm doing my cold calls, there is a chance that if I dial that number today and they say, no, I'm no longer interested, right? And I look and I say, before, if I delete keyword, I want to put like little stars. Maybe I'll go back and edit. Little stars, important, fireworks and highlighters. If I was to schedule a callback for this individual, I won't lose them. They won't fall through the cracks. I will follow up and get a hold of them at some time in the future. If I don't schedule a callback and they say I'm no longer interested, and I remove them from my cold, warm, or hot database and I put them into the phone book and I don't schedule them, there's these different levels of safety nets that you can put depending on how big you want the hole of the net to fall through. My problem before was when I would put them into Gen Pop, and if I went to dial them and that 90th day came around and it dials the number, but they don't answer, now the next time Mojo is going to dial them is going to be 180 days. And that's what was happening. That's why I have so many misses, because nobody was scheduled for a callback when they were a super low priority. I went and called it like tepid. It was a lead that was no longer hot, warm, or cold. and I didn't want to put it in Gen Pop. So here's what I did with Mojo in particular. I said, you know what? Cold is a lead status. Cold lead, meaning that at minimum, I'm going to schedule a follow-up call on my cold leads no more than 4 months into the future. So that if you talk to someone and they say, not right now, right? Maybe later. And then you call them, right? You say not right now, maybe later, and it's a warm. So you call them back a month from now. Say it's a cold call. They say not right now, maybe later. You say, you know what? I'm just calling them in a month from now because they don't know me. I don't know them. Let me go back in there and see if I can't elevate one more question. Because again, when I do my cold calls, I don't just say, hi, you interested, and hang up. I'm always pushing for that second question. Do you think maybe later down the road you'd reconsider, with the expectation that they will give me a date, a time, a specific time frame, so that I know where to put them in my database. This is all about identifying an individual and putting them in the calendar and then spreading out 1,000 of these people over the course of time. Drip campaign, varying levels of motivation, thus varying levels of marketing, with the intention of them getting to know me as soon as possible, or when necessary for me to be at the right place at the right time, whether it's now or later. And that later formula was falling lots of leads through the cracks because I did not have one more little category called hot, warm, cold lead prospecting. So at the end of the day, what do I want you to do? I want you to go into whatever CRM you have, and I want you to create a fourth category. The fourth category will be your phone book, and that's where you cold call from. You don't cold call from your cold list anymore. You cold call from your cold lead pool. Or no, I'm sorry, you cold call from your phone book or prospecting. You do your cold follow-ups. They're scheduled. One more added benefit of having this particular system is that inside of Mojo, you can go into your list and you can see down the line who has a scheduled callback. This is a another highlighter point, another little star that needs to be added. If your cold lead does not have a callback, you won't call them back. So one of the features or benefits of being able to have each one of these with a callback scheduled is that you can go into Mojo as a list and say, show me my cold list, show me my warm list, show me my hot list, and look down the column that has the date on there. And if that date is blank, which it will be, I promise you, if you have any leads, go into your Mojo and you'll find, or any CRM for that matter, sometimes you will find your lead doesn't have a scheduled callback date, which means you're going to lose them. They're going to list with someone else because you haven't scheduled a follow-up call, a CRM, contact relationship manager. You have the contact in your database. You're trying to build a relationship by managing the time with the contact. Anyhow, I hope this made sense. It's very, very valuable. Please let me know in the comment section if you actually had an aha moment and you're like, okay, James, I was actually wondering what to do with these that once upon a time say. I was wondering what to do. Again, I was going to say what inspired this is I was making my cold calls right now and somebody said, not really, and they hung up, right? You hear something. My script is designed to listen to a subtle variation of no that means maybe. That 6-second rule, if you watch me any amount of time, as I'm cold calling, I'm saying, hi, my name is AJ. Company I was calling to see if you had any interest in selling your house. And if they say no, click. That was not no, click. That was nah. But it's not enough for me to flag it as a cold lead because that would clutter my system. My barrier to leadership is not that low, but I schedule a callback for that person who said, not right now. And not right now is a huge gap between not right now and no. Identify that. If you make 100,000 calls, 1 million calls like me, and you ask the exact same question, there's going to be maybe a 1 to 5% variable on the response of each individual. That 1 to 5% variable is what I'm listening to. And when they say not right now, that is an anomaly in my formula. Not right now in my script and design is an anomaly enough for me to say, they didn't say no. Can I get one more question in? Hey, do you think maybe later down the road you'd reconsider? If they're gone, I will schedule a callback in a month from now and ask the same question. But knowing that since I've asked that same question, knowing that maybe there's something there, right? It's set as a callback, but it's not a lead. I'll call them and I'll try to get that extra question. Do you think maybe later down the road you'd reconsider? Because I know 100% for sure that if they don't say no and they say not right now, something else was going on. Or not 100%, 99%. I assure you, if you just set out on a mission to just call people and ask that question and then just write down on a piece of paper saying, these people said not right now, let's track them for the next year and a half. You will find more often than not that those people did actually sell. I know that's how I survive in this business, is just I'm looking for flecks of gold in a river that once I hit that piece of gold, eureka. I hope you guys are listening. I hope this made sense. I hope this wasn't boring. It's got to be boring if you're not doing your calls. Thank you very much. Again, you want one-on-one coaching, I'm here. Get back to work.
Now, have you seen my amazing local market videos for my real estate business? In one word, Terradatum. They make videos branded to your brokerage and automatically update them every month with videos by zip code, county, city, and your hyper-local market, and it's extremely affordable. Have you guys seen my website lately? Well, you should. It's absolutely gorgeous. I owe it all to Zentap. They will help you with your advertising using your MLS, IDX, and social media to attract an audience and engage your leads using sophisticated bots. Now, you're gonna need a powerful CRM to manage all of this, and as you know, Mojo Selling Solutions is more than just a dialer. It's the most powerful CRM bar none. Mojo provides you expireds for sell by owners, and that is the third list of data, along with email and mail campaigns. For more information on any of these products, along with my personal coaching and training products, go to jamesfestini.com today. Or just show financial support at any amount on patreon.com/James Festini. Now, get back to work.